Welcome. In this video, we're going to be discussing why public speaking matters, even if you don't plan to become a public speaker. Let me tell you a bit of a story. I don't even remember the first time I did any public speaking of any sorts. What I do remember is a social studies presentation that I did in high school. This social studies presentation was about impactful songs. Me and my group, we picked a song and we were discussing it for 5 minutes. In these 5 minutes, I saw the teacher zoning out. I saw my classmates zoning out. My voice was monotone, the slides were black on white, and there wasn't much to pay attention to. That day, I wondered why it was that some students, some of my own classmates, were doing such good presentations and I wasn't. What I figured out is that for us to actually pay attention to what the presenter was saying, it wasn't some magical ability. It was just the fact that they were confident and they were able to communicate their points effectively. I thought that that was something that you were born with. In reality, it's just a skill, and it's a skill that you can learn and improve upon over time. Let's get into the first reason why public speaking matters. Public speaking isn't just about presenting or speaking in front of a large audience. It's about communicating. Everyday communication between yourself, your family, and your friends. It even goes beyond that. It goes into the workplace and it goes to talking with strangers in the public sphere. Communicating ideas clearly and concisely will set you apart from everybody else. Having good speaking skills sets you apart professionally. What do I mean by this? We had a job fair at my university where prospective employers were seeking out students who are graduating soon. In this job fair, all of my classmates were showing up with at least 20 to 30 resumes to give out to every single one of these prospective employers. What I did is I just showed up confidently with my chest out, chin up, spoke clearly and concisely with these employers, and I communicated my background, my education, and who I am as a person. What happened is that I was speaking to 5 to 10 employers in total. Now, half of them weren't interested in me and I wasn't interested in them. Now, for those remaining 5, what happened is that we had extended conversations about who I was, about their company values, and about how we could come together and work as a team. In those 15 minutes I was talking with these potential employers, what happened is that I didn't even need to give my resume to them. They reached out to me, they gave their business card to me, they asked for my LinkedIn. Further on, we communicated through email where that's when I gave them my resume. Now, having said that, this can be applied to all different spheres. This can be applied to finding a job in the first place, the hiring process, the interview process, and then the most important one, while working at the job, how do you communicate yourself to your team, to your employer, so that you can have consistent performance shown over the years. Now, the third reason why speaking matters is because there's less conflict in your everyday life. What I mean is that if you learn effective communication and how to speak and communicate with another person effectively, the result of it is that you set boundaries, you're very clear on what you're saying, and this creates an open and honest conversation between you and the other party where you can understand one another. This results in less conflict, this results in more understanding, and achieving the goal that you set out to achieve is the core issue that communication is hoping to resolve. I always think to myself, had I not learned how to speak confidently, what would my life become? That's a rabbit hole I don't want to dig into. But what I can tell you is how I got to here. What I would often do is watch back the recordings I would make for myself with videos, and also sometimes record my presentations I would do in classrooms. Oftentimes, I would be way too critical of myself and what I thought I did wrong. I would then go and ask my professors and my teachers what their feedback on my presentations were. The comments of my professors were constructive criticism on how I can improve. However, they never belittled me. And that's something I was doing to myself. And that's often the problem. Oftentimes what happens is that you over-criticize yourself if you're watching back your own recordings and you keep pointing out your own flaws. The reality of the fact is that most of the time, the viewer doesn't even notice what you are noticing about yourself. And that leads into my next point. One of the biggest lies I kept telling myself is that the viewer is always judging me on how I'm doing. The reality of the fact is that the viewer is not judging you. If anything, they're supportive of you. More so, they understand what it's like to be speaking towards a camera, towards a whole group of people. If they could do it better than you, they would do it better than you. So don't stand up here and be fearful of getting judged. If anything, you have the support of the audience, firstly, and secondly, they know how much courage it takes to be standing up here and speaking. If you're shy and introverted and you're thinking to yourself that I can't do this, I am here to tell you, yes, you can. It takes a little bit of time, and it takes practice, and it takes time to recognize what you're talking about and how you're saying it, but you can. You're not going to transform overnight, but you will be able to transform yourself and your speaking abilities. If I could go back and talk to that high school version of me, there would be 2 points I would tell him. The first point is that a simple couple of hours of practice will make the biggest difference in how you're able to present and communicate. For that presentation that I told you about, I spent a solid 15 minutes, and that was 15 minutes while everybody else was also presenting, just going over the slides, trying to memorize the notes I was about to say. So it wasn't even a real 15 minutes of focused practice. In comparison, now I spend 2 to 3 hours before making a video, before doing a presentation in front of a group of people. And nobody's asking you to be perfect. The perfect speaker is one who is able to deliver their message effectively. You can always say that the person has a shaky voice, that person uses too many filler words, takes too many pauses, or is too fast, doesn't make eye contact, does make too much eye contact. You can point out every single flaw in the book. However, one thing that stands apart from good speakers and bad speakers is whether or not they're able to communicate their message effectively to their targeted audience. Not to the general population, but to their targeted audience. If I'm doing an academic presentation to the general population, well, it might not hit. But if I'm doing an academic presentation to the class of my peers and my professor, well, that will hit. I'm going to close on this message. Nobody's asking you to become a keynote speaker. Nobody's asking you to become an influencer, YouTuber, and nobody's asking you to be doing presentations at work or school on a daily basis. Public speaking skills and communication skills are core skills that you will need in the modern social life. You can't have an empathetic conversation with a computer. However, you can have an empathetic conversation with another human being. And how do you have an empathetic conversation? Maintaining eye contact, lowering your voice, being a little bit softer, open body language, being inviting, and listening to them. Speaking skills isn't just about finding your voice. It's about developing a leadership ability. It's about being able to inspire others. And it's about being able to communicate with everybody else around you. And at the end of the day, if you can't communicate effectively, then you can't connect with anybody. Creating a personal connection is at the core of what makes us humans. If you learned something from this video, drop a comment and give it a like. Subscribe for more because more is on the way. Thank you for listening and have a good day.